Okay, let's jump right in. Let's start with a basic question about politics, really. What's more important, the title you have or the actual power you hold?
Right. I mean, think about it like this. Imagine a giant company and the CEO has the official title, but he hasn't been in the office in 10 years, doesn't even know where the money is.
And then you have the, I don't know, the executive VP of operations. She's the one managing all the budgets, signing the deals, leading the teams.
Exactly. Everyone knows who the real boss is. The org chart says one thing, but reality, it says something completely different.
That is basically the story of Pippin the Short. He was a man who inherited the real job of running the Frankish Kingdom, even though someone else had the crown.
And today we are going to break down how Pippin managed this incredible power shift, how he turned his family from just powerful advisors into the new royal dynasty, the Carolingians.
It's an amazing story of how political legitimacy is, well, how it's made.
Hmm.
Pippin didn't just grab power. He completely redefined what it meant to be a king.
Yeah, and to really get how he succeeded, you first have to understand the epic failure of the dynasty he replaced.
Right. We are talking about the Merovingian kings. They had ruled the Franks for centuries. Their family line went way back to, like, these ancient legendary
You get
figures.
the history, the bloodline, the crown, everything on paper.
But by Pippin's time, they were totally useless. They had given away so much of their authority that they were just figureheads.
Which is how they got that terrible nickname, the Do-Nothing Kings. The sources actually describe them as basically living in isolation, only showing up to, like, wave at people from a cart pulled by oxen.
Wow. So it was purely for show.
Completely.
So if the king wasn't doing anything, who was actually running this huge Frankish kingdom?
That's where Pippin's family comes in. See, they weren't royalty, they were officials, with a title called the Mayor of the Palace.
But that title sounds so domestic, like he's in charge of the building.
I know, but it was the ultimate power behind the throne. These mayors were massive landowners, so they were incredibly rich. But the key thing is, they controlled the royal estates, the king's money, and they led the armies.
And if you control the money and the military,
You control everything.
and Pippin the Short, he didn't just fall into this job. He inherited a legacy of incredible strength. His dad was Charles Martel.
Who was already a legend. I mean, his victory at the Battle of Tours was huge. It basically cemented his family's reputation as the only ones who could really defend the kingdom.
So Pippin grows up seeing this. He knows his family holds all the real power, while the guy with the crown's just an empty symbol.
Yeah, and by 751, he decides that this contradiction, it just can't stand anymore. It was time to make the title match the reality.
Which you can't just take a crown. I mean, not without risking a civil war. He needed more than just military force. He needed something stronger.
He needed validation
Yeah.
from a higher power. And this is where he makes, honestly, one of the smartest political moves in history.
He sends messengers all the way to Rome.
To the Pope, yeah. And he asks this perfectly crafted question. It's a question designed to completely change the rules of being a king in Western Europe.
The question was, essentially, who should be king? The person who has the ancient sacred title? Or the person who actually holds the power and does the job of governing?
And the Pope's answer, he sided with Pippin, 100%.
That's a huge deal. That verdict gave Pippin the religious and moral backing he needed. The Pope basically declared that competence is more important than bloodline.
It creates a whole new kind of legitimacy. The right to rule is now tied to ability, not just who your ancestors were.
And with that spiritual green light, the coup itself was, well, it was fast and surprisingly bloodless.
Right. He officially removes the last Merovingian king, Childeric III, but here's the clever part. He doesn't kill him.
No, he sends him to a monastery.
Which is brilliant. It gets the old king off the board without creating a martyr. A living, powerless ex-king is way less dangerous than a dead one whose followers want revenge.
After that, the Frankish nobles hold a big ceremony at Soissons, and they elect Pippin as their new ruler. And that's it. The Carolingian dynasty officially begins.
And the whole thing works because of that alliance between Pippin and the Catholic Church. This wasn't just a friendship, it was a deal born out of desperation on both sides.
Let's talk about the Pope's side of it. He was in serious trouble. The Lombards were this aggressive force in Italy, and they were threatening Rome itself.
The Pope was terrified. I mean, really terrified. And his usual protector, the Byzantine emperor, was too far away and too weak to do anything. He needed a new bodyguard.
And Pippin, on the other hand, had just pulled off a coup. He needed his people and his rivals to believe that God was on his side.
Exactly. So the Pope basically traded his spiritual endorsement for military protection.
And Pippin delivered. He marches his army over the Alps, beats back the Lombards, and saves Rome.
But then the deal gets formalized in a way that just changes everything for European royalty. The Pope, Stephen II, actually travels to the Frankish Kingdom.
Which was a massive deal back then. I mean, for the Pope to leave Rome and make that dangerous journey.
A huge deal. And he goes there to personally anoint Pippin and his sons with holy oil.
So why is the holy oil so important? What does that gesture actually do?
It mimics the anointing of the ancient kings of Israel from the Bible. It made the Carolingian family seem sacred. It transformed them from just successful warlords into God's chosen rulers.
And that set the standard for centuries, right? Future European kings would all seek that same kind of approval from the church.
It became the blueprint for monarchy in the Middle Ages.
Okay, so Pippin gets his divine blessing. But there's a physical transaction here, too. One that creates a political entity that lasts for 1,000 years.
Yeah, we're talking about the donation of Pippin. After he defeats the Lombards, he takes control of all this territory around Rome. But instead of keeping it for himself,
He just gives it away.
he gives it directly to the Pope.
That is such a bold move, to conquer all that land and then just hand over the keys.
And those lands became the foundation for the Papal States. This meant the Pope wasn't just a religious leader anymore. He was now a secular prince, a ruler of a territory in Italy with his own army and his own taxes.
And that created this constant tension for centuries, right?
Yeah.
Between the power of kings and the power of the church, which was now also a major landowner.
A massive political consequence. It locked in that alliance, sure, but it also defined European politics for the next 1,000 years.
But Pippin wasn't just a brilliant strategist. He was a great administrator. He knew a kingdom needed a government that actually worked.
Something the Merovingians had totally let fall apart. So he basically rebuilds it. He appointed these local officials called counts to run different districts.
And these counts were his guys, right? Loyal to him, not just some local big shot.
Exactly. Their job was to collect taxes, keep the peace, and most importantly, raise troops for the king's army when he called for them. It was a way to make sure the king's power was felt everywhere.
He also standardized laws across the kingdom, creating a more unified system of justice.
And that stable government allowed his military to be incredibly effective. He was constantly fighting to secure the kingdom's borders.
Right, he fought the Saxons up in the north to stop their raids.
And he led these long, tough campaigns down south in Aquitaine to bring that whole region under his direct control.
And all that fighting, it kept his nobles loyal because he shared the loot with them.
It was a system that worked. Success fueled loyalty, which fueled more success.
Beyond the government and the military, he also knew he had to fix the economy.
Right. A unified kingdom needs unified, stable money. So he starts this massive reform of the coinage.
And he switches from gold to silver, which seems a little backward. Wasn't gold the big international standard?
It was, but it was also really scarce in Western Europe at the time. Gold was for, huge international deals. It wasn't what regular people used.
So making silver the standard was actually a practical move.
A very practical move. He created a new silver coin, the denarius, and it became the currency for everyday life. It meant people could actually buy and sell things easily.
And the key was making it consistent.
Yes. He made it so only the royal mints could produce the coins. That stopped fraud. It made sure the money had the same value everywhere, and it made collecting taxes so much easier.
It's the kind of boring administrative stuff that actually builds an empire.
It's the engine, yeah. And his son, Charles, later Charlemagne, used that economic engine to do everything he did.
This drive to standardize everything, it also extended to the church.
He was very serious about church reform. He worked with guys like Saint Boniface to make sure priests were better educated.
Why? What was the goal there?
Well, he needed them to be good administrators for him on a local level, but also he wanted them to teach people the correct doctrine. He encouraged schools and monasteries and cathedrals.
And he even standardized the church services themselves, the liturgy.
Which is another one of those genius moves for unity. If every village from Germany to France is praying in the exact same way, it creates a powerful shared identity. The church becomes a tool for political unity.
So how did he actually run his government day to day? Did he have a capital city?
Not really. His royal court was a mobile institution. It was constantly on the move.
I find that fascinating. Why move the entire government around all the time?
A few reasons. First, it let him keep an eye on his local counts. You can't get away with much if the king might show up at your door tomorrow.
Right. It also meant he could maintain personal relationships with powerful people all over the kingdom.
And practically, it was a logistical solution. It's hard to feed a massive royal court in one place all year. By moving, they spread the burden across different royal estates.
Okay, so let's talk about the man himself. He's known as Pippin the Short.
Yeah, because of his height. But all the sources make a point of saying that even though he was small, he was incredibly strong and brave.
There's that one story, probably not true, but it tells you a lot about his reputation.
The one with the lion and the bull, yeah. Where his courtiers were mocking his size, so he supposedly jumps into an arena and kills both animals to prove a point.
The point being that leadership has nothing to do with physical size. It's about character and ability.
Exactly. He was described as practical, devout, and just commanding.
Pippin dies in 768 after 17 years of just completely transforming the kingdom. And following Frankish custom, he divides it between his two sons, Charles and Carloman.
Which always seems like such a risky move. You spend your whole life building unity and then you split it in two.
But the system he built, the administration, the economy, the military, it was so strong that it could actually handle that division, at least for a while.
He left his sons a kingdom that was so much stronger and more united than the one he took over. He laid all the groundwork.
And that foundation is what allowed his son Charles to eventually become Charlemagne, Emperor of the Romans.
Pippin's reign was a true turning point. He didn't just take power, he created a new kind of political order. He proved that real authority comes from action, from smart strategy, and from defining what it means to be legitimate on your own terms.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. If you had to choose between having the respected traditional title with no real power, or being the person who actually makes all the rules and controls everything but nobody knows your name, which would you pick and why?
Good luck with your studies on the Middle Ages. See you next time.